My son abandoned me after a stroke. You're a burden. The neighbors will take care of you, he said and disappeared. But what he didn't imagine was that I'd receive $1 million life insurance payout. My name is Mary, and never, not in my wildest dreams or darkest nightmares, did I imagine that one day my own son would discard me. But that's a pain for later. The first wound, the one that tore my soul apart and redefined my very existence, was inflicted by Robert, my husband. I met Robert at a summer block party, the air smelling of grilled corn and the faint scent of fireworks. His eyes shone brighter than the holiday lights, and his smile promised a safe harbor. We married quickly, swept up in a passion that seemed as solid as a rock. Our marriage in the first few months was good. It was what I had always wanted, a home, a companion. And then, the greatest joy. A few months after we started our lives together under the same roof, I discovered I was pregnant. My dream was coming true twofold. I floated for weeks, caressing the belly that was beginning to show, imagining our child's little face, the tiny hands holding my finger. I was radiant, complete. But my happiness seemed to cast a shadow over Robert. While my belly grew, he seemed to wither. The smiling man from the block party gave way to an absent, tense figure. He was never home. The nights were filled with the sound of the key turning in the lock late at night, the smell of alcohol he exuded, the heavy silence that settled between us. He barely spoke to me. "It's work, Mary," he'd mumble, his eyes avoiding mine. "A lot of pressure, a lot of problems." "But Robert, you barely look at me at our home," I tried to argue, my voice choked with hurt and confusion. "We have a child on the way. We need to talk, to support each other." "Talk about what?" he'd retort, his voice harsh. "I'm tired, I just want to rest." And he'd turn over in bed, erecting an invisible wall between us. I knew it was a lie. Work didn't justify the coldness, the distance, the scent of cheap perfume I sometimes caught on his clothes. My heart ached with a terrible premonition, an intuition I tried to stifle, but that grew every day, along with my child in my womb. And then, the final blow. On a gray day, mirroring the color of my soul at the time, I came home from a prenatal appointment, the ultrasound showing my baby's strong little heartbeat, and found Robert's closet empty. Clothes, shoes, everything gone. On the bed, not even a note. Just the deafening emptiness of his absence. That day, I was 6 months pregnant. The floor disappeared from under my feet. I sat on the edge of the bed, the ultrasound forgotten in my hand, tears coming in waves that shook my entire body. It took a few days, through the fog of pain and shock, for the full truth to emerge, brought by a sympathetic and gossipy neighbor. Robert hadn't just left me. He had run off with another woman. A woman who, to my horror and disbelief, already had children from a previous relationship. And he, the man who could barely look at his own pregnant wife, who claimed work pressure to justify his absences, had moved to another state to raise her children. The stab was double, triple. He hadn't just abandoned me pregnant, but he had chosen to be a father to another's children while denying paternity to ours. I was adrift. Pregnant, unemployed. I had quit my modest job to dedicate myself to our marriage and future motherhood, at his request, and without a husband. The world I knew had collapsed. Shame consumed me, but necessity was greater. I swallowed my pride and began to live off the help of friends and family. Neighbors brought a plate of food, a cousin donated used baby clothes. My parents, despite their own difficulties, sent me what little they could. Each gesture of charity was both a balm and a humiliation. Until Ryan was born. Beautiful, healthy, and a crier. Holding him in my arms for the first time was like finding a lighthouse in the darkest storm. He was my purpose, my strength, the reason to get out of bed every day. For him, I would fight tooth and nail. As soon as I had minimally recovered from childbirth, I started working. I cleaned houses, did laundry for others, accepted any honest job that came my way. Being a single mother in America, without paternal support, without a financial safety net, was a daily battle. The days were long, my body ached, money was always short, but Ryan's smile, his first words, his tight hugs, gave me the energy to continue. I bent over backwards so he would have the minimum. Food on the table, clean clothes, a roof over his head, even if rented and simple. I gave everything I could, and even what I couldn't, so that my son would have a good life, so he wouldn't feel the absence of the father he never knew and the things we never had. The years passed in this frantic rhythm of work and mothering. And then, like a punch to the gut, came more news about Robert, brought again by the same neighbor, now with an almost triumphant tone of someone confirming another's misfortune. I discovered that my ex-husband, the man who had left me with nothing, had helped raise his lover's children. He had paid for their college. Meanwhile, I was counting pennies to pay for Ryan's modest private school tuition, dreaming of the day he could access higher education, something I never had. The wound throbbed again, deeper. Betrayal and abandonment weren't enough. There was the cruel injustice of seeing the fruits of his labor benefit others, while his own blood struggled for scraps. And the final humiliation. I also learned that he had built a house for his lover, a solid and secure home, while I bounced from rental to rental, always fearing I couldn't pay the next bill. Rage gnawed at me, an acid threatening to consume me. But looking at Ryan, seeing his effort in his studies, his naive kindness, kept me from sinking into resentment. I couldn't falter. It wasn't easy, but I would do anything for my son. He was my world. Life, however, has its cruel and, at times, just ironies. Years later, when Ryan was a teenager, almost 15, tall and starting to show a hint of a mustache, the news arrived. The lover had left Robert. Left him with nothing. Exactly as he had done to me. The house went to her, of course. He lost his job there, and the woman, seeing he was no longer useful, discarded him. And then, to my absolute surprise and dismay, he returned. He appeared at my door late one afternoon, thin, aged, his once bright eyes now dull and defeated. He carried only an old battered backpack containing what little he had left. He stopped at the gate, hesitant. "Mary," he began, his voice hoarse. Can I come in?" I looked at him, at the pathetic figure he had become. A part of me felt a dark satisfaction, poetic justice being served. But another part, the one that still remembered the smiling young man from the block party, felt a pang of something resembling pity. But the hurt was greater, the scar too deep. "No, Robert," I replied, my voice firm despite the internal turmoil. "This isn't your home anymore. You made your choice many years ago." He lowered his head. "I know. I messed up. I messed up badly, Mary. Forgive me." Forgiveness is a complex thing, Robert. But you're not coming in here. Ryan was home. He heard the man's voice at the gate and came to see who it was. I told him briefly and directly that this was his father. Ryan, my usually sweet and talkative son, fell silent. His eyes, previously curious, hardened. He looked at Robert for a long moment, a cold assessment that sent a chill down my spine. Then, he turned his back and went back inside the house without a word. "He doesn't want to meet me?" Robert asked, his voice choked. "He's 15, Robert. He's lived his whole life without you. I'm not going to force him to do anything. The decision is his," I said, keeping the door ajar, but my body blocking the way. "He didn't want to meet you. I gave him the choice, but he showed no desire whatsoever." Robert nodded, defeated. He walked away, dragging his feet and the old backpack. I later found out he went to live in a wooden shack on the back of an acquaintance's property, in a rough part of town. He faced real hardship, hunger, cold. The anger I felt for him was immense. It was the anger of years of solitary struggle, anger that he had invested in another's children while ours faced hardship, anger for the house he gave his lover while I feared eviction. But seeing him in that situation, it was miserable. Compassion, that stubborn trait that sometimes cursed me, began to sprout amidst the resentment. I started to help him, discreetly. Once a week, I'd prepare a hot soup, a hearty plate of food, and take it to the shack. Sometimes, I'd buy some medicine for the persistent cough he had developed. "Thank you, Mary," he'd say, his eyes welling up, devouring the food eagerly. You didn't have to do this. After everything. I'm doing it for me, I'd reply curtly, though it wasn't entirely true. Forgive me, Mary. For everything. For Ryan, for you. I was a fool, a scoundrel. I remained quiet. His plea for forgiveness echoed in the void. It didn't alleviate the pain in my heart, didn't erase the sleepless nights, the exhausting days, the humiliation. But I continued to bring the food. It was the least my conscience would allow. I tried to do my best, even with a heavy heart. One day, he showed up at my house again. Not at the gate, but he knocked on the door, looking neater, a different glint in his eyes. Mary, I came to say goodbye, he said, his voice firmer. I got a job. It's in another state, on a farm. I won't earn much, but I'm going to send child support for Ryan. Every month. It's the least I can do. I looked at him, surprised. A promise. Coming from him, it was hard to believe, but there was a sincerity in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. It really is the least, Robert, I agreed. He deserves it. He always deserved it. I know. I'm going to try to fix some of the damage I've done. I wished him luck, without much enthusiasm, but also without hostility. He thanked me and left. Part of me doubted I'd see a single penny. But, a month later, to my astonishment, a deposit appeared in my account. It wasn't a large amount, far from it, barely covering the cost of Ryan's school books that month. But it was something. It was from him. It was for his son. That first payment gave me an unexpected breather. Help that, though small, made a difference. He continued to send it. Some months, the amount was a little larger. In others, it was cut in half, with a crooked note attached to the post office receipt apologizing, saying work had been slow. But he sent it. That small, irregular sum, added to my hard-earned salary from 2 jobs, cleaning houses during the day, waitressing at night, began to make a difference. I saved every penny. The child support money, my salary, the savings I made by giving up any luxury, no matter how small. My goal was one: Ryan's college education. I didn't want him to go through the hardships I did. I wanted him to have the chance for a different future, a future Robert had stolen from me and that now, ironically, he was helping to build, even if with crumbs. The journey was arduous. Years of extreme deprivation, sleepless nights, constant worry about bills. But Ryan responded to every sacrifice. He studied hard, got into a good public university, which already eased the burden of tuition, but there were still costs for materials, transportation, food. He knew of my effort, and that motivated him even more. With great difficulty, with Robert's irregular help and my full dedication, I managed to see my son graduate. Graduation day was one of the happiest of my life. Seeing him there, in his cap and gown, receiving his diploma, was proof that all the struggle had been worth it. The tears I cried that day were not of sadness or hurt, but of immense pride, of profound relief. Soon after graduation, Ryan got a good job in his field. The starting salary wasn't a fortune, but it was enough for him to start walking on his own 2 feet, to feel the dignity of supporting himself and gradually to start improving his life. Seeing him happy, fulfilled, paying his own bills, making plans for the future. It was my greatest reward. My son was well, he was on his way. My mission, the mission I embraced alone when I was abandoned pregnant, was accomplished. Time, that relentless sculptor of destinies, began to shape Ryan's life. He progressed, yes, but with the frustrating slowness of someone aiming for the mountain peak while still at its base. His career advanced in small steps, and with each small achievement, the hunger for more seemed to grow exponentially within him. He talked incessantly about his ambitions, the cars he would have, the houses, the overflowing bank account. His eyes shone with a fever I recognized, not of passion, but of pure greed. Mom, one day you'll see. I'm going to be rich. Really rich, he'd say, gesturing enthusiastically while showing me a new watch, too expensive for his current salary. No more struggling, no more counting pennies. Never again. I'd sigh, a knot forming in my throat. Son, money is good, it helps, but it's not everything in life. Not everything. Mom, you say that because you've never had it. You don't know what it's like to see others having everything and you having nothing. I do. I remember. I remember the mended clothes, the worn-out sneakers, the shame. Never again. I always thought this excessive longing was the scar left by a difficult childhood, by his father's absence, by the deprivations that I, despite all my efforts, couldn't completely avoid. It was a wound that, instead of healing with time and initial success, seemed to fester, distorting his values. Ryan began to invest heavily in his appearance. Designer clothes, imported shoes, his hair always impeccable. Image is everything, Mom, he'd justify. People treat you differently when you look successful. It opens doors, creates opportunities. At first, I just saw a young man wanting to fit in, wanting to erase the marks of poverty. But my son's greed grew like a weed, suffocating the kindness I knew existed in him. He spent hours and hours at the office, came home exhausted, but with a feverish glint in his eyes when he recounted his strategies. Today, I dealt with that brown-noser Miller, he told me one night, as we ate the simple meal I had prepared. I told the boss some truths about him, things I heard in the hallway. Nothing major, just to tarnish his image a bit. That supervisor position is going to be mine. My stomach turned. Ryan, that's not right. Talking bad about a colleague behind his back? Making things up. He shrugged, chewing hastily. Mom, that's how the world works. If I don't do it, someone will do it to me. Being nice just gets you stepped on. I'm tired of being stepped on. Now I want to be at the top, stepping on others if necessary. But son, that's not you. I didn't raise you to be like this. To get things by backstabbing others. My voice was choked. Disappointment, a bitter taste in my mouth. A difficult childhood is no excuse to become someone without scruples. You should go after your dreams, yes, work hard, but with honesty. Honesty doesn't pay the bills, Mom. Nor does it buy the latest car, he retorted, already getting up from the table, impatient with my naivety. He told me these things with a frightening naturalness, as if they were valid tactics in a game where only the smartest win. It got to the point where he lied about where he lived, telling colleagues and superiors he lived in an upscale neighborhood, to reinforce the image of success he wanted to project. The worst part was that his tactics seemed to work. He got promotions, raises. Each step he climbed in the company, each compliment from the boss earned at the expense of another's reputation, seemed to reinforce his twisted thoughts. Success validated the means. I felt helpless. I saw my son transform into someone I didn't recognize, someone who scared me. I started to pray more, asking God to put some sense into his head, to make him see the error of his ways before it was too late. While Ryan ascended in his dubious career, my own trajectory followed the opposite path. My health, once robust despite the difficulties, began to show signs of exhaustion. The years of intense work, often 2 jobs simultaneously, cleaning houses during the day, serving tables at night, took their toll. Back pain became a constant companion, a sharp pang that took my breath away with the slightest effort. My legs felt heavy, swelled, protested with every step. I tried to hide it as much as I could, taking cheap painkillers, applying warm compresses, not wanting to be a burden, not wanting to hinder my son's rise. But the body has limits. And mine reached its extreme. One ordinary afternoon, while hanging clothes on the line of our small rented apartment, I felt a sudden dizziness. The left side of my body felt strangely heavy, my vision blurred. The last thing I remember was the blue sky spinning before everything went dark. I woke up in a hospital room, the smell of disinfectant in the air, a constant beeping beside me. Neighbors had found me collapsed in the yard and called an ambulance. The diagnosis was swift and brutal, a stroke. The most devastating news was the consequence. I lost movement on the entire left side of my body. My arm and leg were inert, the corner of my mouth slightly drooped. I was hospitalized for a few days. Ryan was there, of course. He handled the bureaucracy, listened to the doctor's explanations. But his face was a mask of restrained impatience. You could see his mind was elsewhere, probably on the work he was missing, the meetings he couldn't attend. I was discharged with an uncertain outlook. Intensive physical therapy, perhaps, with luck and a lot of effort, I might regain some movement. But it wasn't a certainty. And it would take time. A lot of time. We returned home. The house that was once my refuge now seemed like a prison full of obstacles. The bed too high, the bathroom slippery, the kitchen inaccessible. I depended on help for everything. Eating, going to the bathroom, dressing, moving from the bed to the old wheelchair we managed to borrow. We didn't have money to pay for a caregiver. The medical costs had already consumed the few savings I had. Ryan, then, took on the task. But it was visible how much it annoyed him. He did what needed to be done. He bathed me with brusque and efficient movements, prepared quick and bland meals, lifted me and placed me in the chair with a poorly disguised sigh. His face was always serious, his jaw tense, his eyes fixed on some distant point. Conversations were monosyllabic. "Need anything, Mom?" he'd ask, already moving away. "No, son, thank you," I'd reply, my voice weak, trying not to ask for anything, trying to be as little trouble as possible. I felt like a burden. A dead weight in my ambitious son's life. Sadness consumed me from within, a pain deeper than physical paralysis. Seeing the poorly concealed irritation in his eyes every time I needed help was a silent torture. Guilt, irrational but present, gnawed at me. I had become the obstacle he needed to overcome. It was then that a ray of light appeared in my darkness. Mr. Anthony and Mrs. Elsa, our neighbors from the apartment across the hall, a couple in their 50s, started to show up. They had a son, Mark, a quiet and polite young man of about 18. They saw my situation. Perhaps they sensed the tension between me and Ryan. "Mrs. Mary, good morning. I made a cornbread cake, brought you a piece," Mrs. Elsa would say, entering with a warm smile and a steaming plate. "If you need to go to the doctor, let me know and I'll take you in my car," offered Mr. Anthony, a calm and gentle man. Gradually, their help became constant, natural. They were angels in my life. Mrs. Elsa, with infinite patience, would come to help me bathe, chatting about trivial things, treating me with dignity and affection. Mr. Anthony took me to physical therapy appointments, adjusting the car seat, helping me get in and out carefully. Mark, their son, would come after school, help me move from the chair to the bed, get me a glass of water, sometimes even read the newspaper to me. They did everything with a selfless kindness that warmed my heart and, at the same time, painfully highlighted the emotional absence of my own son. Ryan seemed relieved by the neighbors' help. He began to use them as an excuse to be absent more and more. He came home later from work, went out on weekends claiming urgent professional commitments. The few hours he spent at home were dedicated to his phone or computer, immersed in his own world. The distance between us grew every day, a cold and silent abyss. Until one day, the final blow. I woke up and the house was too quiet. I called for Ryan, but there was no answer. I asked Mrs. Elsa, who had come to bring my breakfast, to check his room. She returned pale, her eyes wide. "He's not here, Mrs. Mary. His clothes are gone. There's only this on the bed." She handed me a white envelope. My hands trembled so much I could barely open it. It was a letter. Ryan's hasty handwriting filled the page. "Mom, I can't do this anymore. I know you need help, but I can't. You've become a burden in my life. Because of you, I lost an important promotion. I can't concentrate on work, I can't network, I can't grow. My life is on hold because of you. The neighbors are good, they can take care of you. Mrs. Elsa and Mr. Anthony like to help. They can handle it. I need to focus on myself, on my future. I'm moving somewhere else, a place where I can finally dedicate myself to my growth, without having to worry about anything else. Don't look for me. It's better this way. Ryan." Every word was a stab, a burden. That's what I was to him. The son for whom I had given my life, my health, my youth. The pain was so overwhelming, so physical, I thought my heart would stop. Being left by my husband, pregnant and with nothing, had been brutal. But this, being abandoned by my own son, so coldly and calculatingly, was a pain of another dimension. It was the denial of everything I was, of all the love I gave. It was absolute emptiness. I started to cry. A convulsive, guttural cry that came from the depths of my torn soul. I cried for hours, clutching that cruel letter, until I had no more tears, just dry sobs and a pain that seemed to split me in two. Mrs. Elsa and Mr. Anthony found me like that. They were shocked, outraged. "This can't stand, Mrs. Mary," exclaimed Mr. Anthony, his face red with anger. "This is a crime. Neglect of a dependent. We have to call the police." Mrs. Elsa agreed, her eyes full of tears of compassion and revolt. "He can't do this to you and get away with it." But, amidst my devastation, a painful clarity emerged. I shook my head, my voice choked, almost a whisper. "No. No police. But Mrs. Mary." "No," I repeated, firmer, swallowing my sobs. "Despite everything, despite all this, he's still my son. I don't want to see him in jail. I can't." The decision was an overwhelming weight, another layer of suffering on my already shattered heart. But it was my decision. I would protect him, even though he had destroyed me. 6 months slipped away like water through fingers, a time marked by Ryan's deafening absence and the constant warm presence of Anthony, Elsa, and Mark. The pain of the wound my son had opened still throbbed, a dull ache that caught me off guard in moments of silence, but daily life with that blessed family was a balm, a network of affection that kept me from sinking into the pit of bitterness. I never saw or heard from Ryan again. No calls, no messages, no smoke signals. He had vanished from my life like a flame blown out by the wind. Gradually, my routine merged with theirs. I spent more time in the neighboring apartment, chatting with Elsa in the kitchen while she prepared lunch, listening to Mr. Anthony's stories about his old job, or simply sitting on the sofa, watching Mark study, than in my own home. Their apartment became my true home, a refuge of human warmth and acceptance. It got to the point where Mark, with the naturalness of his 18 years and daily interaction, started calling me Grandma. The first time I heard it, my eyes filled with tears. Tears of unexpected joy, of a sense of belonging I thought I would never feel again. My body also responded to this caring environment and to the physical therapy, even the limited kind I could access. I showed significant improvement. Independence, once a distant dream, began to become a palpable reality. I still needed help with heavier tasks, and my left arm stubbornly refused to obey completely, but I could already shower alone, dress with some difficulty, and prepare simple meals. Small victories filled me with hope and restored my dignity. The wheelchair stayed in a corner for increasingly longer periods. One sunny morning, as we were having coffee on Elsa's balcony, watching the quiet movement of the street, she handed me an envelope. "This arrived for you at the front desk, Mrs. Mary. It's been there since yesterday. The doorman forgot to tell us." I took the envelope. The sender was a law firm I didn't recognize. I opened it curiously, my fingers still a little clumsy. I read the letter once, twice, 3 times. My eyes widened. My heart gave a strange leap in my chest. Robert, my ex-husband, had passed away. The news took me by surprise. It had been years, many years, since I had heard from him. Since Ryan had finished college, the meager and irregular support payments had ceased, and any trace of contact had dissolved in time. The letter formally requested that I contact a specific lawyer, whose number was noted there. "Is something wrong, Mrs. Mary?" Elsa asked, noticing my sudden pallor. It's Robert, my ex-husband. He passed away," I murmured, the letter trembling in my hands. There was a respectful silence. I felt a twinge of sadness, yes. A diffuse melancholy for the memory of the young man he had been, for the life we could have had, for the inevitability of death that comes for everyone. But I didn't cry. Time, distance, and especially the depth of the wounds he had caused me had eroded any stronger feeling. We were strangers connected by a painful past and a child in common. The next day, I called the indicated number. The voice on the other end of the line was professional and direct. "Mrs. Mary, this is Dr. Evans, speaking on behalf of the estate of Mr. Robert Smith. I need you to come to my office to discuss a matter of interest to you." A matter of interest to me? But I haven't had contact with him for years, I replied, confused. He left specific provisions, ma'am. It concerns a life insurance policy. Life insurance? In my name? That made no sense. I scheduled an appointment, my head spinning with unanswered questions. I told Anthony and Elsa, who promptly offered to accompany me. "Of course we'll go, Mrs. Mary. Don't worry, we'll be there with you," said Anthony with his usual calm. Dr. Evans's office was sober and elegant, in a commercial building downtown. I sat in the chair in front of his mahogany desk. Anthony and Elsa discreetly settled inside armchairs, like my silent guardians. The lawyer, a middle-aged man with thin-rimmed glasses, got straight to the point. "Mrs. Mary, Mr. Robert Smith took out a life insurance policy some years ago and named you as the sole beneficiary." He paused, observing my astonished reaction. "I spoke with him at the time of the purchase. He told me he felt profound regret for what he had done to you in the past, and that you were the only person who helped him when he needed it most, even after everything. He wanted somehow to compensate you, or at least ensure you had some security should anything happen to him." I was speechless. Robert, regretful to the point of taking out a policy in my name? The man who had abandoned me pregnant, who had supported another's children while I starved. The man whose son had repeated his pattern of abandonment? It was almost unbelievable. The twinge of sadness for his death mingled with an even greater confusion. I didn't expect this," I managed to say. "I imagined maybe it was some small amount, some old debt." Dr. Evans cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses. "Mrs. Mary, the policy is considerable." He handed me a document. My eyes scanned the printed numbers, and my jaw dropped. It wasn't a small amount. It wasn't even a reasonable amount. It was $1 million sum. An amount I had never, in my wildest dreams, imagined possessing. I looked at Anthony, at Elsa, seeking confirmation that I wasn't dreaming or delirious. Their eyes were as wide as mine. Is this correct?" I stammered. "Absolutely correct, ma'am. This is the amount. After the legal procedures and presentation of the necessary documentation, the sum will be transferred to the account you indicate." I left the office stunned, leaning on my friends, the document with the $1 million figure seeming to burn in my purse. I could hardly believe it. Money, which had always been the source of so much anguish, so many deprivations, now arrived unexpectedly, from the hands of the man who had made me suffer most. It was an irony so profound it was almost painful. Days later, the money was in my account. A string of zeros that seemed unreal. I looked at the bank statement and felt a mixture of dizziness and responsibility. What to do with so much money? The answer came quickly, clear as water. First, my health. I paid for physical therapy sessions at the best clinics in the city, bought a new, lightweight, modern wheelchair, though fortunately, I used it less and less, and hired an architect to completely renovate my apartment, adapting every room to my needs, eliminating barriers, bringing comfort and safety. Then, my guardian angels. The gratitude I felt for Anthony, Elsa, and Mark was immeasurable. No money could pay for the kindness, the affection, the support they gave me in the darkest moment of my life. But I could, at least, ease their burdens, fulfill their dreams. For Mr. Anthony, who had driven miles taking me to appointments and exams without ever complaining, I bought a new car, brand new. His eyes shone like a child's when he saw the vehicle in the building's garage. For Elsa, whose dream was to have a custom kitchen and a renovated bathroom, I hired the same architect and transformed their apartment, making it beautiful and functional. And for Mark, my dear grandson, I offered something I knew was worth more than any material possession. I paid for his entire college education, the engineering course he so desired, ensuring he had the opportunity to build a bright future without the financial worries that haunt so many young people. At first, they vehemently refused the gifts. Imagine, Mrs. Mary. We did it from the heart. You don't need to do this, said Elsa, moved. You have no obligation whatsoever, reinforced Anthony, awkwardly. But I insisted. You did for me what no money can buy. The amount I received is very large, and my greatest joy will be to share some of this luck with you, who were my family when I needed it most. Faced with my insistence and the genuine affection behind the offer, they eventually accepted, with tears in their eyes and tight hugs. With intensive, quality treatments, my recovery took a leap. In a few months, I had almost completely regained my movement. My mouth returned to normal, my leg responded firmly, only my left arm still showed a slight difficulty, a residual stubbornness, but nothing that prevented me from doing my daily activities. I went back to cooking my own meals, taking care of my house, walking down the street safely. I felt reborn. I started spending more time in my newly renovated apartment, enjoying my regained independence. But the connection with my neighbors didn't diminish. They remained present, no longer out of my necessity, but out of pure affection. We had lunch together almost every day, walked in the park on weekends, talked for hours on end. We were, indeed, a family chosen by the heart. However, the news of my sudden enrichment, somehow like a weed that always finds a crack to sprout, reached Ryan's ears. And then, after a whole year of silence and absence, he reappeared. He knocked on my door late one afternoon. I hesitated before opening. My heart gave a painful jolt seeing him there. He was thinner, haggard, his eyes sunken, his expensive clothes now a bit disheveled. "Mom," he began, his voice choked, his eyes downcast. I heard what happened. With the money. But that's not why I'm here. I came to ask for forgiveness. I messed up, Mom. I was a monster. Abandoning you like that. I regret it so much. I looked at him, at the downcast figure, at the performance of remorse. But my heart, once so prone to blind compassion, was now shielded by pain and experience. I didn't feel pity. I felt a profound weariness. Regretful, Ryan? I questioned, my voice firm, without a trace of tears. Do you have any idea what you did? If it weren't for Anthony, Elsa, and Mark, I might not even be here to hear your apologies. I could have died alone, abandoned. Did you think about that? I know, Mom, I know. I was selfish, cruel. There's no excuse. But I've changed. Life taught me some lessons. He tried to approach, perhaps for a hug. I took a step back. Your apologies seem empty, Ryan. As empty as your heart was when you wrote that letter. Realizing that the mask of repentance wasn't working, that I wouldn't fall for his act, his true personality emerged, ugly and resentful. His tone of voice changed. His posture became aggressive. Oh, so that's how it is? You mean now that you're rich, you're going to discard me? That money. Half of it is mine by right. It was my father who left it. I'm his son. I took a deep breath, the disappointment burning like acid. The money, Ryan, was left to me. In my name. An insurance policy. It's not an inheritance. And even if it were, after what you did, do you think you'd have any moral right to it? Moral right doesn't fill my stomach. I'm going to get a lawyer. I'm going to take what's mine. You'll see. He spat out the words, his face contorted by anger and greed. I felt my heart break once more, not because of the threat, but because of the definitive realization of my son's character. I opened the door completely. Do as you wish, Ryan. And I closed the door in his face, the sound echoing in the hallway and in my soul. He really tried. He hired a lawyer who sent notices. But the law was clear. Life insurance doesn't go through probate. It's not inheritance. The named beneficiary receives the full amount. When Ryan and his lawyer realized there was no legal loophole, that they couldn't get a penny from me, the strategy changed. He started visiting me insistently. No longer with threats, but with a veiled plea, a sad story. I found out, through a casual conversation with an old colleague of his whom I met on the street, what had really happened. Ryan had been fired, and he had narrowly avoided jail. Despite all my warnings in the past, he hadn't learned his lesson. He had tried to embezzle funds from the company where he worked, was discovered, and fired for just cause. The company only didn't press charges to avoid a bigger scandal. Now, Ryan was in the worst possible situation. Unemployed, penniless, with a bad reputation. Just like his father before him, he ended up living in a borrowed shack in a distant, run-down neighborhood. He was hungry, cold, in need. Life, with its relentless irony, had put him in exactly the same place he had so desperately wanted to escape, and in the same place where his father had ended up. The news hit me like a lightning bolt. The image of my son, the boy I carried in my womb, starving, living in subhuman conditions. It was too much for a mother's heart to bear. Despite everything, the pain, the hurt, the profound disappointment, he was still my son. I couldn't sleep knowing he was in that situation. Letting him wither away there wouldn't teach him anything. It would only destroy him. But I also knew that simply giving him money would be repeating the cycle, validating the idea that he could always count on an easy rescue. The help had to be different. I spoke to an acquaintance, the owner of a small supermarket chain, a good man who knew me from difficult times. I asked, as a personal favor, that he give Ryan a chance. A simple job as a stock clerk, minimum wage, hard work. My friend agreed, for my sake. I informed Ryan of the opportunity, without fanfare. He seemed surprised, perhaps expecting me to offer him money. I explained the conditions. Honest work, low wages, no perks. He accepted, perhaps because he had no other choice. Besides the job, I started giving him, once a month, a full basket of groceries. So he wouldn't go hungry. That was it. Food and the opportunity for decent work. The rest, the responsibility to get back on his feet, was entirely his. Not another penny came out of my pocket for him. Gradually, I began to notice a change. The harshness of life, the pain of real hunger, the long hours of exhausting work for minimum wage, the often indifferent treatment from customers and colleagues. All of that began to shape his personality in a way my words never could. He became more humble, quieter. He began to understand firsthand what I went through for years to raise him. Arrogance gave way to a resigned weariness, but also to a newfound respect for the value of honest work and the food on the table. Ryan started treating me better. On his rare days off, he'd show up for coffee. He'd bring simple gifts when he got paid. A flower picked on the way, a cheap box of chocolates. He'd ask how I was, if I needed anything. He started accompanying me to some routine medical appointments, waiting patiently in the waiting room. And most importantly, he never asked me for anything again. Not money, not favors. Just my company, my conversation. Slowly, very slowly, the trust one thought had died began to sprout again, fragile as a shoot after a fire. But I stood firm. We talked, I listened to him, but there was no longer the blind indulgence of before. Even when he apologized, with a sincerity that now seemed more genuine, I accepted them with a nod, but without shedding tears or offering easy words of comfort. The wound was there, scarred, but present. Today, I tell this long and tortuous story sitting in the comfortable armchair of my adapted apartment. I look at my hands, which move freely, at my legs, which support me firmly. My body is almost fully recovered. The effects of the stroke are minimal, almost unnoticeable. I have true friends by my side, my chosen family. Anthony, Elsa, Mark, who is now excelling in engineering school. They are my safe harbor, my constant joy. And I have my son. A son who erred terribly, who caused me the deepest pain a mother can feel, but who, through suffering and my firmness, has shown signs that he is seeking change. Our relationship is different, rebuilt from ruins, with caution and clear boundaries. He is learning, the hard way, the value of honesty, humility, respect. And I am here by his side, not just to welcome the repentant son, but to continue doing my role as a mother. The one who teaches, the one who guides, even if the path of learning is, at times, painful. I will remain firm, for love also manifests in discipline and truth. I hope you enjoyed the story. Like, comment, and share. Thanks for watching.